Christ is king, it's where we belong. Stay with the dream, don't lose your way. Right way's the fire that'll light the day. Keep it simple, let the moment arrive. 3-8 trap keeps the hope alive. Hold on tight till the signal's near. Right way's the trail, we're breaking through fear.
Good morning, fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for November 3rd, 2025. Well, I hope everyone had a nice restful weekend, ready for another busy week. Lots of earnings this week, and we have some economic data coming our way as well. Well, of course, assuming that the government gets reopened. But with that said, how about we dig in here and see what happened overnight? First off, if we take a look at Asian markets last night, boy, they had a really good one. The deal between, seemingly the deal between China and the U.S. is really raising spirits in Asian markets. Australia last night was up $12.90 or 0.15%. Hong Kong up 251.71 or 0.97%. South Korea made a new record high, up 114.37 or 2.78% higher. We've got the Nikkei zooming as well, up 1,085.73 points or 2.12% higher last night. We saw India up 41.25 or 0.16%. And Shanghai was higher by 21.73 or 0.55%, even though they had some data that the PMI data was weaker than expected, continuing to show declines. If we take a look at European markets here this morning, European markets are also decidedly bullish across the board here. We've got the DAX this morning up 268.42 or 1.12% this morning. FTSE is up $5.30 or 0.05%, and the CAC is up 20.42 or 0.25%. If we look at U.S. futures this morning, Dow futures are up 30, well, let's see, they've changed here. They are up 23 points at the moment here on the Dow futures. We're looking at 24 points on the S&P 500 futures, and NASDAQ is once again zooming up 154.25 this morning. Let's take a look at what we have going on here in the U.S. dollar. U.S. dollar is moving a little bit higher here this morning. Dollar is up almost 10 cents, and you can see breaking through this resistance and maybe stretching up to tackle this next area of resistance in the chart. So watch that carefully here on the dollar, showing some strength to the upside. Interestingly enough, as that is going on, we still have gold moving slightly higher here this morning. Right now, gold futures up $19 an ounce, $4,015.70 an ounce on gold. Silver is moving up 23 cents at 48.39 an ounce this morning. We've got copper. Copper is moving up, but only by 1/10 of 1 cent here this morning. Platinum is moving higher by 27.30 an ounce. Let's see, that's 1.73%, and palladium is up at $12.90 an ounce or 0.89% here this morning. If we take a look at what's going on in cryptos, well, crypto's having a little bit of a rough morning here. We've got Bitcoin at the moment down 2,289.10 a coin, or 2.08%. Ether is down 145.72. 3.80% lower, and Solana is down by 9 points, or 4.90% here this morning on Solana, right across the board on those cryptos here today. Let's take a look at what's going on in oil this morning. If we take a look at USO here, United States Oil Fund, we are pulling back just a little bit. We're down 35 cents a barrel at 60.62 this morning. We've got Brent. That's coming in at 64.44 this morning, and natural gas is up by 12 cents, breaking through some resistance here. Might be trying to finish up a basing pattern in here on natural gas. We'll want to watch that one pretty closely. You might also want to be keeping an eye on oil up here, pushing resistance in the chart as well. So keep an eye on that. So what does all that mean for the day? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Monday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thanks so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these index charts, see if we can figure out how we might want to approach the market for today. Remember, we want to look at these charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be, and we want to shake off that bias and really focus in here on the details. Well, first off, boy, there's no way you can look at this chart here in the diamonds without seeing a bullish chart. Nice little resting pullback here coming into price support, and now those bulls are pushing here this morning to the upside. So if those bulls can really get going in here, I'm going to suggest we need to break back through this area right through here. Get back above that area, and then I think we have that chance that we can push on through to those all-time highs here in the diamonds, and boy, there's every reason to believe that's possible. So blue sky above that if that were the case. If the bears, however, have anything to say, you can also see that possibility. If the bears were to push back, we would have a retest of some support areas in here, and then breaking on through to this area support would be that little bit of rising concern. Dropping through there, of course, would be problematic for the diamonds. Let's take a look at our SPY. Now, our SPY has been remarkably bullish, continuing to show that bullish pattern here in the chart, bouncing up here today. If the bulls can follow through on that and really get that moving to the upside, then I think there's a possibility we can break through this little area of resistance, then start pushing up here into this gap situation here in the chart. Remember, all we have to do is close above the bottom of this candle here, and we've got new record high close in the SPY, and pushing on through up here, we could have new record highs pretty easily in that chart. Now, if the bears were to have anything to say, if I were to mark this right across here, I think first thing we need to do is break down through there and then start pushing down toward these lows. Of course, breaking on through that upside trend and into this area support, that would be problematic here, because there's not a whole lot of support in this candle right here, and with a big hole underneath. So if the bears were to really find something to grab a hold of, we could see some substantial moves to the downside if that were the case. Now, if we take a look at QQQ, the most bullish here this morning, pushing through. I think there's every reason to believe that's going to push through that little bit of resistance. And remember, we just have to close above there to have a new record high close here in the Qs. And it's certainly possible if we push up through there, blue sky above, nothing but rarefied air up there. If the bears were to have anything to say, I think pushing down through that area right there would be the concerning place we'll want to watch for. If we break down through that, then I think we have a pretty good chance of testing this support here in the chart. You will want to keep in mind that there is some space here on the QQQ that we could continue to chop in this range, chop out here toward this trend as well. Just kind of keeping that in mind. And the QQQ is the most ahead of their bullish trend at the moment. Now, if the bears were to have anything to say, you could see breaking down through this area right across there. If we were to pop down through there, that would start to raise a little bit of concern, because that would probably push us back toward this area price support. If we hold there, no problem. But if we were to break below there, look at this big gap in here that could be filled. That could be a really painful push down. We challenge that upside trend here in the chart if that were to occur. So watch that carefully. Right now, no signs of that in the chart, but certainly in the realm of possibility of big point moves if those bears find any kind of inspiration. Now, looking at the IWM, our Russell has been the weakest of the indexes, but had a pretty good day on Friday yesterday, finding on Friday, not yesterday, found that price support right in there. That held pretty darn well. And if that can continue to hold in here and we can start pushing back, let's see if we can stretch on up here, test some of this resistance in the chart, see if we can break through there, and then we can start progressing back up to see if we can make it up through those all-time highs. Now, one thing I'll be watching a little bit more closely here on IWM is any kind of a lower high. If we were to bounce up in here, find some resistance in this zone up here, rallying up and then show failure, and that's along that downtrend here. If I were to see that, that would be a little bit of concern for me here in IWM. Now, if the bears were to find that inspiration today and start pushing us lower, breaking back down below this area here, probably raise a little bit of concern, and that might stretch us right on down through this area of support. And then, of course, breaking through here, that's where things get a little bit interesting, and we really put that lower high in place here in IWM, and that would be a bit of a concern. Now let's take a look at our VIX. Our VIX, as we continue to stretch to the upside, we've had several days here where the VIX just refuses to go down, even as we have been pushing and pushing and pushing so hard to the upside. So watch that carefully here. We need to see that VIX ease off here just a bit, start pushing down at least to this area here in the chart, and then maybe even breaking below. When you consider we were making record highs over here, and now we're making record highs in the market with our VIX much higher, the volatility is getting challenging, and you can even see that in the bid-ask spreads on even the indexes. The spreads are crazy right now, so be kind of careful in here. This just really suggests that if for some reason we were to stumble at all here in the market, we could really see that VIX take off here to the upside as well. So watch that carefully. Our T2122 had a nice bounce back there on Friday. You'll want to be keeping in mind, though, in that bounce back, we've got a long ways to go. With the bullishness here this morning, we might see that push back up here substantially. Remember, we could push back up to that 50% in area here pretty easily. But if those bulls really find inspiration for today, we've given them lots of upside opportunity here. So watch that carefully if they really start to stretch to the upside. On the other side of the coin is if the bears were to come up with anything in here, breaking down from here, we just opened up more space for the bears to work if they were going to find any inspiration here today to do so. So watch that. Our T2108 took all day before this started to turn up on Friday. And as we started to turn up, well, let's keep an eye on that. 35% here, a little bit higher. Let's watch that area. You can see there's a bit of price resistance along that 35% area over in here, so watch that closely. We've created kind of this downtrending area here in T2108 with 32, not quite 32.5% of the stocks holding above their 40-day. Now that's again one of those situations where we've been making record highs but less and less participation in the market. So if we can stretch up through there, maybe stretching back toward that 40% area, up toward this downtrend, that's certainly a possibility today. Now, if the bears were to have anything to say, if they were to fight back in here, dropping below 30% is a little bit of a psychological level. We'll want to be watching that carefully, because as that occurs, less than 30% of the stocks above their 40-day does not really say, man, we are zoomingly bullish. Yeah, it's big tech doing the work most of the time, and unfortunately it's just a small group of stocks doing that. So watch that carefully here. Now our T2107 also took pretty much all day just to turn up, and we ended the day just ever so slightly higher but relatively flat. If the bulls can find inspiration here today, we need to see it push back up toward 50%. And 50% is that kind of a key psychological area here. Getting back through that will run into this bit of a downtrend here in the chart. So watch that carefully. And if the bears were to have anything to say, and we were to break below this 45% area, that could be problematic here for the market. It really is showing us that we're a very centric market into just those big tech giants, and we are certainly not getting the participation in the rest of the market. So what that does tell me is if we were to stumble in big tech, look out, we could have some big point moves. Our T2101, whoops, our breadth has been showing us that uncertainty here and weakness overall. So trying to hold up here on Friday in that bullish move. We struggled for a while, and it was only at the end of the day where that actually started to pick back up a little bit. But you can see quite a little bit of resistance in there on T2101. If the bulls can push on through there, that's going to be important to see that breadth following through on the bullish side. If we continue to try and rally on weakening breadth, that's a problem. That's where that big whipsaw or that big snap in the market could occur. So watch carefully here on that breadth. It is a bit on the concerning side, so watch that closely. Let's take a look at what's going on in our economic calendar here for this week. Our economic calendar, we're going to start off the day with a PMI final manufacturing number here at 9:45. More importantly, the ISM number will be out at 10, and then we've got construction spending coming in here at 10 as well. Taking a look at those consensus areas in here, you can see we're looking at PMI staying flat at 52.2. Our ISM consensus is suggesting it moves up just ever so slightly, about 0.4 to 49.5 from 49.1. And then we've got construction spending in here coming out at a negative 0.1 is what the consensus is suggesting there. So maybe a little decline in construction spending. We've got 3 and 6 month bond auction and a couple of Fed speakers in here. Looking forward into Tuesday, I'm just going to run through the highlights here. We've got several Fed speakers this week after getting past the FOMC. International trade, factory orders, job openings, ADP coming in here along with those mortgage applications, Treasury refunding statement that will be going off in here. We've got several bond announcements, a PMI final, an ISM index, petroleum status. Now remember, any and all of these could just end up being data's lacking, so we might not get a bunch of these. But remember, ADP is independent from the government, so ADP could give us an interesting number here. They're looking for 28,000 on that ADP report, relatively weak. And then going into Thursday, our Challenger job cut, we'll certainly get that. We get jobless claims, productivity and costs, wholesale inventories, natural gas, some bond auctions going on, of course, all week, and a bunch of Fed speak in here that we'll want to be paying attention to. And then on Friday, we're going to start off today with more Fed conversation in here, employment situation report. That is likely not to occur unless we get the government reopened, and even if we do, they may not have time to put it together. Consumer sentiment, Baker Hughes, Mirren will be speaking, and consumer credit in here. So a little bit busier week on that economic calendar, assuming we get any of that data. Now, if we take a look at our earnings calendar, we've got a really busy week of earnings this week. As a matter of fact, I think Thursday this week, we're looking at more than 300 companies will be reporting on Thursday, so it's going to be a busy week here of economic reports, so kind of keep that in mind. Take a screenshot here. These are the notables. Most importantly here after the bell today, AMD, PLTR, high flyers here in the market. They don't have near the weight of those big tech giants, but certainly can keep that energy flowing here in the market with some more of those tech reports, so watch those carefully. So how about we take a look at a few charts that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube and also click that bell icon when it pops up, so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful to your day, if you could do me that favor and click that thumbs up button and leave a brief comment. That helps the channel about as much as anything else. It shows engagement with the video. Thank you so much who take the time to do that. I didn't get a chance to answer everything on Friday, but I should be back on task today. Thank you everyone for the kind support. I truly appreciate it. Let's take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up, and one that I just think is looking pretty darn good here is GE. Nice little resting consolidation in here on that bullish pattern. We're really good and close to that support area. Still hanging in here off of this trend, so watch that carefully here. If we can get some bullish action coming in here, I certainly could see that possibility that GE pops on through to the upside. Take a look at the industrial sector. We've had some really strong industrials here recently and showing some strength here at the moment. Watch that carefully. You could trade the entire industrial sector in here and get that little bit of a push and breakout up here. Certainly a possibility. Or you can drop into that industrial sector and take a look at some of these stocks that have really been moving the market. JB Hunt has been really strong in here. Nice little resting consolidation. Nice bullishness there on Friday. That could perhaps pop and take off in here. So there's quite a few. JCI has been really strong, pushing up through here. Boeing certainly struggled on its earnings and fell all apart, but boy, when we look at heavy equipment, CMI, that's looking really good in here. I would keep a close eye on CMI. Nice little resting pattern in here out toward trend, and I would look for that next opportunity to pop through. When we look at John Deere's trying to come up here out of the bottom on those heavy equipment plays, so watch that carefully. If we can hold a little bit of price support in there and get that push up through, I'd watch that one closely here on John Deere. And then of course CAT has been zooming to the upside, and as we resting right in here, watch for that next opportunity somewhere along this trend in here that could push on through. So keep a close eye on heavy equipment, seemingly doing quite well here in the market. Let's take a look at utilities. Our utilities in here have been falling and pulling back after a long, strong run to the upside. They gave up this trend on this lower high. This is a pattern that you're going to want to be starting to keep an eye on here. If we start to falter in some of these sectors, it's right there where you look for that lower high in the beginning of that downtrend. So now any rally back here on utilities, it could consolidate, it could rally back. We could push back up into this downtrend, we could consolidate over, but watch for that next opportunity to maybe pick up a short position there, at least pulling back to some of these support areas here in the chart. And we're seeing a lot of this forming up in the market in different areas, so watch that carefully. Also take a look at XLF, the financials in here. These financials have been struggling, so watch that carefully in here. We dropped pretty hard last week. Looked like we had that chance of breaking that trend up here. Then we fell through this support in the chart. So watch this carefully as we struggle underneath that resistance and downtrend. We could rally back up and catch a failure. We could consolidate over and catch a failure in some of those financials. So watch that carefully here in the chart. And there certainly are some bullish ones out there as well. If we look at Goldman, Goldman's looking bullish after breaking that downtrend in here, trying to hold up. You could look at stocks like BAC that is still trying to hang in there and look really strong at the moment, so it could push on through here to highs. But there's also quite a few out there that are showing significant weakness, so keep a close eye on those. Just like when we look at energy stocks, we've got some of them really starting to turn around and go bullish. Some of them starting to show bearish patterns. Here in SU, this is a nice little higher low that's setting up here after breaking through this resistance. And we still have that potential, though, that this could fail in here as well, or push on higher. So it's about a 50-50 shot in here on SU. But take a look at things like ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil's trying to hold up after breaking through some resistance up here. That's worth paying attention to if those bulls can step on through. I really like the way Valero could be setting up here. Valero Energy resting against this resistance in the chart, coming out here. Now, I don't know where this trend is. I placed that line in there. I don't know where the trend is. It could flatten out here even more. Just watch that carefully here in Valero. If it catches some energy, that might pop right on through to the upside. Worth paying attention to in there. Let's continue to keep an eye on these uranium plays, even though they did start catching a little bit more of a pullback. You can see a little bit of selling in there on Friday. Maybe falling into a bit of a downtrend here, trying to hold on to some price support. So watch that carefully. We can find that inspiration in here. That might pop on through. My UEC trade's holding up pretty well in here, rallied up. It still hasn't been able to break out of that high, but if it can just kind of hang on in here, if we can catch that little bit of bullish action coming in, that easily could stretch on through and maybe find some trend out here. So watch that carefully on UEC. URA, same pattern, trying to hold up in there. Hasn't been able to break out of that recent high, but holding up. Take a look at UROY also showing some bullishness in here and worth paying attention to. So I would watch that carefully here. If this can hold in that chart, keeping that look for that upside trend to come along here in UROY. Let's take a look at a few other areas here. Merck has been pretty interesting. I set an alert in here on Merck, and that just fell and pulled back to this trend. Watching that kind of closely in here in this wedging pattern, you can see in this basing pattern in here, Merck might be trying to come around a little bit, but it may have to continue to fill up this pattern in here. So watch that carefully if that continues to have to rest and fill up that pattern. If it can find that bullishness and break back through up here again, it's going to have after making this double bottom pattern in here, it's going to have to break up and hold for me to get too excited about that. But I do like this basing pattern and that chance that this could be one of those that could turn around and move through to the upside on the longer term. Here's the weekly on that chart. And on the weekly, this is a bullish pattern all day long. We just need that little bit of push of energy in here to pop that through. And I certainly think that is a possibility to be watching for. So keep an eye on that. Still looking pretty good for that potential hold and push on through to the upside. Let's take a look at a few other things in here. Trade desk. Trade desk is looking pretty ugly here. I would watch that carefully. We are maybe trying to build a little teeny tiny head and shoulders pattern in here, inverted head and shoulders. Watch that carefully if that could pop on through. I'd be kind of careful with it because I really do think because of this downtrend, it could easily go the other way in the chart. But watch that one closely, trying to come back around. Take a look at UPS. UPS, that big drive here. Again, those are weekly. Here's the daily. That big drive here in UPS through on that earnings report. Resting back, here's the current upside trend. This may continue to have to rest or have more of that protracted pullback into that trend before this really gets good. But watch that closely here. Bullishness in the market like we're seeing right now might push that right on through. So I'd keep an eye on UPS. FedEx is looking really good here as well. Nice little push in here. In that chart, we have plenty of time before that next earnings report here. So breaking through this resistance on that nice bullish candle, watch that carefully. At any time that could take off on up to the upside. And there's that big basing pattern that we're breaking out of. So worth paying attention to, I think, in that chart. This BILI has been very, very bullish for a long time. The only problem with it, it's a really gappy type stock. But other than that, if this can hold in here on this support, see every reason to believe that could push on through to the upside and get something going there. Still really liking how the solars are holding up in here. Solar's looking really good, looking for that next potential move to the upside. Keep an eye on that. I keep mentioning Run as well. Run's been resting in this consolidating pattern. Had a little bit of bullishness in there on Friday. May find that energy to push on through. And last but not least, I would really keep an eye on some of these steel stocks. Steel Dynamics, a nice strong push up, broke through this resistance here in the chart. Now we're resting back. Now it may have to rest here for a while. You never know. We might have to rest in here and hold, clear out here to trend, but I would keep an eye on some of those looking pretty strong. Nucor had a really nice stretch here just recently after earnings, testing some resistance here in the chart, and it's pretty strong resistance. But if this can hold in maybe this upside trend right in here, hold in this area, then I would look for that opportunity for that to push on through to the upside. Worth paying attention to. And remember, with all this construction we're doing around the country, we're certainly going to need an awful lot of steel. So with that, everyone, hey, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. Wish you great results in your trading. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. And I'll see you right back here bright and early Tuesday morning. As always, I wish you all the very best.
Black and white candles, my stars in the dark. Price is my king, got that fire and spark. Right ways raise my ranch on the trader's trail, trading with heart where the profits prevail.